we are live, apparently, and so fantastic. I'm so glad to be able to be talking to you on this day. And today I wanted to do this little live stream because I just wanted to spread the word about how today, February 19th, is Remembrance Day of the Japanese internment during World War II. And so that's a very upsetting part of American history, of course. But I feel like this day is especially relevant this year and what's going on in the US. So, what is the Day of Remembrance all about? It's actually celebrated on February 19th because it is the anniversary of that fateful day in 1942, February 19th, 1942, when FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, signed an executive order number 9066, so 9066. It was the executive order that led to the forced relocation and incarceration of approximately 120,000 Japanese Americans over the course of World War II. And so that's quite upsetting. And I feel it's especially relevant today, given how we have, I believe, over 70,000 so called detainees in our immigration detention centers right now. And the Day of Remembrance is supposed to be all about learning what happened on that fateful day in 1942 when um, FDR decided to round up all the Japanese Americans and incarcerate them without even charging them with a crime or criminally indicting them or anything. And it's upsetting to me that this day is going by this year without a lot of people actually hearing about it or knowing about it because it seems to me like we haven't learned anything from the atrocities we did during World War II right here in the United States. And so they didn't call them, I don't believe they called them internment camps back then. The government was calling them assembly centers and relocation centers, much more politically appropriate sounding names and all that. And so that's what was going on during World War II to 120,000 Japanese Americans. Now we're still celebrating this Remembrance Day or the Day of Remembrance now. Um, and it is a federal day of remembrance because President Joe Biden in 2022 signed a presidential proclamation making February 19th a national day of remembrance of Japanese Americans incarcerated during World War II. So that's still a thing. The government hasn't gone against that or taken it away, but it's odd that we haven't learned a single lesson from it, given that we have tens of thousands of detainees in custody right now. Hi, thank you so much for showing up. Couple of people here. I'm happy to see something's going in the live chat. Fantastic. Um, and so we have back then they were calling them relocation centers or assembly centers. These days we're calling them detention centers, and but they're all well reminiscent of concentration camps to me. Um, and one thing I think is really upsetting by this is all this came about by executive order, by FDR's executive order 9066 in 1942. And so it wasn't actually made into law by Congress. It was just an executive order. but it did have the real force of law behind it in the sense that um, people had to comply with it. It was an executive order, and then Congress did pass a law about a month later called Public Law 77 503, 77 503, I think, which would make violating the executive order 9066 into any violations of that order into federal crimes, misdemeanors. So Congress did eventually back up this executive order with a little force of law behind it. And so, yeah, it's all very upsetting. And again, I just wanted to sort of get the word out there a little bit. That today is the day of remembrance for what we Americans did to Japanese Americans during World War II and all the atrocities that they suffered at the hands of our our own government and our own people. And so, a couple notable things, of course, are that February 19th, that's the day it's celebrated because it's the anniversary of the signing of that executive order. And so today makes 84 years since that order was signed. And the significance about this day is it serves as a day to reflect on the violations of civil rights that went on and a day to fight against discrimination and to ensure such injustices like what America did to Japanese Americans during World War II never happen again. And oh, hi. Hi, everybody. Very cool. I'm looking to see even more people coming into the live chat. Nice to see you all. Thanks for being here. And so I'm glad this is still a day of remembrance because we should absolutely never forget about what we did back then. And in these days, when we have more than 70,000 detainees in custody right now, it seems like we didn't learn anything about injustice or a violation of civil rights or anything like that from World War II. So that's annoying. Um, and so communities nationwide. How is this celebrated? I should really touch on that. How is this done? Communities nationwide hold a lot of events, and often they feature a panel of speakers, several different speakers, or educational programs, um, and candle lighting ceremonies. So it's not like super um, super celebration, fireworks, and all that, or anything like that. It's a very somber occasion, but I think the point is to really point out that this did happen in history and to fight against it ever happening again. So, and it is federal now. And which means that the National Park Service and various other organizations use this day to educate the public on the incarceration of Japanese Americans in 10 remote concentration camps. We'll call them internment camps, even though they were using relocation centers or assembly centers anyway. And so, again, this day is a crucial reminder of a dark period in American history, focusing on the experiences of those who were wrongfully detained. And it's definitely worth noting that even though they were forcibly relocated and incarcerated for years, not a single Japanese American was ever charged with, much less convicted of, espionage or sabotage against the United States. None of this. So they were all just targeted, rounded up, and imprisoned for years just because they had the so-called face of the enemy. And so again, that brings me back to our situation today. Um, uh, and just rounding folks up because the state has somehow declared them all enemies of the state, and so it's all really upsetting. Um, and just by the way, how did the Day of Remembrance start out? It started on the West Coast, and so in the state of Washington, they had the first Day of Remembrance, what was nearly, about 47 years ago now, in 1978. That was the first day observing uh, uh, the day that the Executive Order 9066 was signed and authorized the Japanese American internment. Um, and that they actually did it in November of that year, not actually on the birthday of, but by February of the next year of 1979, then the state of Oregon followed suit. And in February of 1979, less than 4 months after the original Washington event, Oregon had a Day of Remembrance. And what's important about the Washington Day of Remembrance, one of the things that's important about it, in my opinion, is that they held it at the internment camp, well, the former internment camp known as Camp Harmony. Um, and so they actually did this Remembrance Day in on the site of a former internment camp. So that to me is pretty eerie and very fitting in a way because you can point out this happened right here. So again, like I said, about 4 months later, the state of Oregon followed suit with Washington and did their own Day of Remembrance in February of 1979. Then by the 80s, California joined into the mix, and the governor of California in 1986 declared Day of Remembrance in California to be again February 19th, 1986. And so that was, all. So I guess I wanted to point out how this all started on the West Coast. And then it gone further, like Days of Remembrance are official in Colorado, Alaska, Utah and Idaho all had them. And again, Joe Biden made it a federal thing, so it doesn't have to be just state by state anymore. And so, why do I think this year in 2026, why do I think it's so important to recognize this Day of Remembrance this year? Again, we have, right now, we have about 400 detention facilities in the U.S. right now. 400, that's a lot. And I was thinking that's a lot in New York State alone because we have six of them. And but it turns out there are other states with even more than that, like Texas and California, Louisiana, Georgia, Arizona. They have a lot more of them. And in June of 2025, we had 436 of them, and I think this number is still growing. Um, and we have the capacity for tens of thousands of people detained at a time. And sometimes we have had more than 70,000 people detained at a time. And that's super upsetting because if if they're also deporting people in the meantime and they still end up refilling with tens of thousands of more people, it makes me wonder how many people altogether are going through this. And what's scary is the capacity for detention centers. We are often already at more than 70,000 detainees at a time. It's projected to reach within the next couple of years to reach somewhere between 90,000 and 135,000 um, spaces for detainees. And so that's all upsetting. So I figured I wanted to at least do this little video to this little live stream to point out that this is going on because I find it's especially relevant right now, and it would really be really nice if people would read the history on this and really learn about it. Oh, by the way, if you are looking to read anything about the history on this, I put a link in the description to a place where Indiana University um, had well, they put together a bunch of different resources, so articles and some films are mentioned and some digital resources, so you can learn more about it yourself if you like. And yeah, and this makes me worried that we're on track to beat that number of 120,000, which is how many Japanese Americans we totally forcibly relocated and incarcerated for years years and years. And it makes me worried that I think we're actually going to beat that number and end up detaining more than 120,000 people altogether in the current immigration crackdown that we got going on. So I just wanted to get that out there because I know it would be easy to forget that this is happening today, Thursday, because 2 days ago we had A, Mardi Gras, B, the new Lunar New Year, as well as C, the beginning of Ramadan. All that stuff started 2 days ago, so I didn't want this one to just sort of the Day of Remembrance to just slip through the cracks without anybody noticing. So I thought I should go on and do a little live stream here. So thank you all for being with me. And we've got yeah, I'm glad to see some people engaging in the chat. I'm looking at that. Sorry, not trying to get too close and whatnot. Um, and yeah, so I guess that's what I had to say is let's not forget what we did to Japanese Americans in the 1940s, and specifically starting February 19th, 1942, and then through the rest of World War II, because I think we might be repeating some mistakes from history right now, and that's truly scary. Um, and yeah, so that's most of what I had to say. So if anybody has any comment they would like to make about this or any question for me, please feel free to put it in the live chat. And again, uh, I'm worried especially that we're not learning from our mistakes in the past because we have over 400 detention facilities right now, which are actually some of them are dedicated detention facilities. Others are local and state jails and prisons and even some private prisons being used. So we're using a bunch of different kinds of facilities to do this. But there's more than 400 of them right now. And again, like 7, 8 months ago, I know there were 436 and the number was still growing. I cannot be sure of whether we've reached the number of 500 yet. So that's why all I'm saying is over 400 detention facilities, and it's growing. And that's compared to so-called normal times when the U.S. we do normally have detention facilities. It's part of the whole immigrations enforcement thing. But usually the number we have is around half of what we have now. It's between 200 and 250 facilities. Right now, we have well over 400,000 facilities, probably nearly 500. 400 detention facilities, and probably nearly 500. And so, yeah, this is a little unsustainable. And plus, you got to worry about if we do somehow finish deporting the people, the folks, the detainees in there, this is a huge profit business. This is a huge, um, yeah, people are making a lot of money off this. I mean, specifically, like I mentioned, private prisons for one. So people are getting money off of this. And so, who do you think they're going to start coming after once if they even did just get rid of the worst of the worst? I'm really worried about that in particular. But oh well, that's all very depressing. Um, oh, thank you for letting us know this, Sunshine. That's a good point. George Takei spent part of his childhood in one of those camps. Zulu, Lieutenant Zulu, and all that. Yeah, one of America's very favorite Japanese people of all. Thanks for bringing that up, Rachel. Anyway, very cool. And yeah, so if you want to, I suggest that you Google this or anything else. If you just look into Remembrance Day and how different places are celebrating it. Like, I know that there have been a lot of events going on today in many different places across the country, including the American History Museum, which is showing a film and doing a discussion around it and all that, and lots of other things where you have speaker panels and whatnot like that around. So the most important thing is that we not forget what the U.S. did to Japanese Americans during 1942, and we hope to learn a lesson from that and hopefully never do that to anybody else ever. Right? Anyway, so yeah, so that's what I had to say for today. And thank you again, everybody, for coming to join me in this live stream. I've been having a good time talking to you, even though it's a very upsetting subject matter. Oh, and by the way, this isn't something that's celebrated in Japan. It's a very American thing. Japan does have a holiday, which they name in two ways. On August 15th, which is they name it either the anniversary of the end of the war, or they call it anniversary of war loss, and so that's all commemorating when the Japanese Emperor Hirohito surrendered at the end of World War II, which was after Hiroshima and Nagasaki got A bombed. So I'm saying that, yeah, this day is celebrated in America, and it's not really with all that much attention about how we bombed Japan like that. It's all about what we did to Japanese Americans. Um, and so that, yeah, again, that all reminds me of the horrors we see going on right now. And so hopefully, we will learn that this is not the direction to keep pursuing. And yeah, anyway, so that's good for me today. I guess I'm not gonna wear you all out when I've already said everything I have to say about that. And so thanks again for being here. And by the way, I'm having a premiere tomorrow night, Friday night at 8:30 p.m. It's all about the origins of certain superstitions that have centuries old or millennia old origins about them. So maybe stay tuned for that, right? That will be at least lighter topic and maybe a little more fun. So yeah, and again, if you're not watching it this live, but you're watching it on the replay, thanks again for watching it, and please do remember to drop a like on the video. It would help it very much in YouTube's little algorithm and whatnot. And thanks again for being here, and I'm gonna just end it there, I guess, and so I'll catch you around next time. Bye bye.